of the Internet of Senses Institute. I'm delighted to moderate this podcast on sight. I am Joel Garrison, a hyper-curious learner and lover of the sense of sight and the gift of vision. Because of his life dedicated to sight, exploring and expanding the realm of sight, we are excited to speak with Remco Veenbrink. His passion for sight led him to the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in The Hague. After graduating, Remco developed a successful marketing and advertising career as a director, producer, and creator for internationally renowned brands. Since 2018, Remco has been fully dedicated to developing and growing his company, VideowindoW. He is founder, CEO, and the creative mastermind behind successive versions of the VideowindoW technology. Before we learn about VideowindoW, Remco, would you tell us more about yourself and how you developed your passion for sight?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you for having me on the show. I'm a Dutch person. I live in the Netherlands, grew up in a rural area. And my goal was always to go to the bigger city. So I moved to the big city, to the Royal Academy of Fine Arts. And there I learned how to actively look at things. And my major was photography. And yeah, photography, of course, I went out as a student with the camera and taking pictures and becoming more and more aware of how photographers not so much respond to what they see, but they see the composition happening in their head before it's actually there. So it's a very active way of looking at things, and that was that enriches you, for a lifetime. To learn how to look. That I think it's everyone should do that. So to have a camera as an alibi to spend time in looking. That's a great tool. And I remember as a kid, I had the camera, and I learned the power of the camera as well by directing my friends into situations. And we did that for the camera. And that was more directive, but in the academy it was leaning more towards documentary photography. So there you have little to no influence on what's happening in front of your camera. And there you really have to foresee all the elements coming together before they are there. And then I was one of the decisive moments from Cartier-Bresson, the Magnum agency. I was a strong believer of not altering your frame in the dark room, and that really puts you at a position where you have to look actively. It's only one moment, and yeah, so that has had an effect on everything I did afterwards. So after the Art Academy, I became a commercials film director, as you also mentioned in your introduction. I did a lot of nice things, and at some commercials I also picked up the camera again. It's just good to stay close to the visual appearance of your film, and that was more of a constructed reality. Commercials, that in that sense it's not so explorative. Little surprises. Everything has to be predefined, but still, sometimes you do nice commercials where active looking was still part of it. And that's, now that I'm an entrepreneur again, I'm trying to reintroduce also chance into developing our product in a way. So, of course, there's a lot more money involved. There's a lot of people involved. It's not such a solitary endeavor. a company. There's many aspects that are very strict as well. Business-wise, you have to. Those are things I had to develop. So in terms of who are you, where you come from. I come from an art academy, but now I'm an entrepreneur. So I have to learn a lot about things that are actually, they can be very creative too. I mean, business in that sense, it's not a fixed, nothing is fixed. That's what I like so much about this endeavor, that I'm learning so much about things that I thought, that is a very factual, that's a very strict part of running a business. But actually there's a lot of creativity in many aspects of running a company as well. And I think that is the strength that you need to be both agile, but also be very flexible, because you'll have a lot of challenges, and you need to overcome those in many different ways. Money is not always the solution. So you have a little money, so that's your challenge. Yes, of course, that is a challenge, but you have to find ways in a creative way. So that's why the conceptual thinking from the Art Academy still applies, and also to focus, to get back to sight, on your ultimate goal. Now, what is the true concept behind all this? And if we strip things away out of necessity or out of choice, I think it's always good to have that concept, the mission and the vision in startup world jargon. That you need to have that, because that is something that is overcoming all the challenges. That's where you can make people. Make them believe. It sounds like a trick, but to be truly authentic and convincing, you have to really be mission driven, from a deeper starting point. And I think that vision part that already started as a kid when I had that camera and I learned how to look at the world. Yeah, I think that's where it started. And at some point, I totally got rid of the camera, because I was doing 4 years my final exam. I thought, I now feel confident enough to look and no longer need that alibi of the camera. I can actually see and foresee things happening, but I don't need that kind of proof by collecting images in that way in a camera, storing them. I was very, very, very liberated, but still I wanted to hold on to a moment, because there is also memories in images. So it's not just the act of looking, but also it allows you to look back as well. That's kind of a melancholic, maybe, or sentimental aspect of collecting moments in a camera and in prints. But because I ditched the camera and printing, what I did is actually collect the objects that I discovered physically. And that in the beginning it was fine, but at some point I have a storage room with objects that I collected. What I did is I collected the object, and then I flattened that object, because that's what cameras do. They basically flatten a three-dimensional representation, a three-dimensional object, and then represent it as a two-dimensional proof, kind of an evidence of a moment that was in the past. And by actually collecting the physical object, and then by making a picture of it, I flattened those objects and then represented those in between two plexiglass plates, as if it was a picture. But then the interesting thing is that that object no longer referred to something that was in the past. Because if you take a picture of an object, that object is no longer the way it is represented. It's already older. So you hold on to a moment when you take a picture of something. But by looking at it, if you have the actual object there, there is no such a reference to the past. The object is actually there when you perceive it as an image. And that was a super interesting creative endeavor. Maybe it's vague. And I'm not sure if I totally uncovered what I was looking for in those efforts. So it's still ongoing. And I think, you know, that I hope that I'll never figure it out fully what I'm after there, because it's such an interesting creative endeavor. But that was the core also for VideowindoW. So the whole medium of cinema, where you have a projector and a screen on which you project an image. I thought, what if I could create a cinema without a projector? And I don't want to be in the dark. I want cinema to be part of life. I don't want to sit in a dark room. I want cinema to happen during the day in broad daylight. Can I take the storytelling out of the dark room and make it part of life? And that was the start of VideowindoW, where I did a lot of research on creating imagery with the use of daylight. And I looked in mechanical ways of creating pixels, basically. So there was a huge glass brick wall, glass stones. I don't know, you might be familiar with that. So it's basically a building constructional element, and it's a block of glass that is square, usually. And I thought, if I can use those square blocks as pixels, and if I can somehow influence the transparency of the glass, that would be fantastic, because then I have a daylight cinema, which is part of a building, and we can add a narrative to the glass facade. That is intriguing. So I looked at examples of the past. I went to Paris, to l'Institut du Monde Arabe, where they have apertures. So as in cameras, where you can stop down the light entering the lens. It's but it was a huge facade with many apertures that mechanically were opening up and closing the amount of light that would pass through, kind of shutters in a way. So light shutters, but it was mechanical. So it was at some point it broke. So I thought, so that's not the way. So we have to do it electronically. So we have to find other ways of creating a light valve out of these pixels. As I was building, or as we were building a set for one of the commercials I was doing, someone was welding construction, did a lot of car commercials. So we always had special rigs for the cars made. And I saw that the welding helmet, the very second the first spark ignites, the welding helmet turns black to protect the eyes of the welder. I thought, that's the technique. That's the technique I need. And then, long story short, a lot of expertise I found, and I searched for it. I mean, I searched and found. So we went into the liquid crystals, and we were able to actually create that first glass brick idea into a proof of principle. And that was the start of the company, because at some point it became so expensive to further experiment. It was it was a lot of work, but at some point also very expensive. And that's where I had a friend of mine who was into banking. He worked at a Japanese investment bank, and he said, "Yeah, that is an interesting vision. Let's see how we can create this. Let's try to make this happen." And we found some money. And then we could build our first proof of concept. So we have the proof of principle, that's the first step. And then we had a proof of concept. It's a bit bigger, it was a bit better, smaller pixels, so we could have smaller installations and already create that narrative. Before it was a bit abstract, already interesting though. And then, yeah, that's how we were able to create daylight cinema. The cinema in the public domain, because that's the next step. So where do you install it? You can have it at home, but that's not, then you don't reach your audience. So to have that in the public domain, yeah, that was the ultimate goal. And that, yeah, we're doing it now. So that is super nice.
I mean, that's totally full circle, but backing up just a little bit, did you have a particular type of photography that you enjoyed, that you like to spend your time going after? Was it all people focus, building focus, animal focus? What did you really like to take pictures of?
It's definitely people focused. It's heavily influenced by Robert Frank, also Allen Ginsberg, the poet. He also had super nice pictures of his friends. Yeah, it's poetry, it's photography, it's beatnik, so it's documentary photography for sure. Yeah, that is intriguing. I like that because it tries to enter into a world where you might not necessarily be part of, but allows you to explore that, and you learn so much by so that the camera, it's still that little alibi that kind of, it's really interesting. So you're not part of that scene, but because you have a camera, they allow you in, and that is yeah, if that happens, you have to gain the trust of the people that you're taking pictures of and with. They have to trust you, and they have to feel that you will that you're not there to abuse or use or misuse them. They have to, you building the trust. And I think that also with the company is the same thing. The team that we have, they believe that what we're after is worthy of the time and the endeavor that we put into it. And I think you cannot fake that. You cannot fake the trust, because they'll know, and they will not let you in. And they're rightfully so, because you're intruding into their circle. And that photography I always thought was most interesting, because you learn so much. Yeah, the journalistic photography, that was the approach that I liked most.